Morning. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Pleased to announce that we've made another major step forward in bringing our taxicab industry, taxicab operation into the 21st century. We've selected Verifone Systems as the vendor to provide a Taxi Smart meter system that will be installed by the end of the year in all cabs licensed in the District of Columbia. This system, which was developed by our Taxicab Commission in consultation with others, will allow something that we said we were going to do, and that is credit card payments and GPS tracking, as well as internet access, among a number of other things that will bring us from, at best, being in the middle of the pack to being now, we think, near the top of taxicab operations in the nation. Some of you will recall that we permitted a surcharge to be imposed as the gas prices escalated. We also approved earlier last year a fare increase and also a lifting of the $19 cap, which was imposed upon trips. The contract was agreed to late last week, and I am today sending it to the council and recommending its swift approval, which I hope will occur as soon as next week. This will be a $35 million contract over a period of 5 years, total for the 5 years, and Verifone will install, maintain, and operate the system. The only cost of the drivers will be a modest installation fee. Again, the drivers will not be expected to pay for the new meters. They will be paid for out of the proceeds that will be generated by this new approach. The cost of the system will be paid for from a fund that will be fueled by a 50-cent surcharge per ride. Starting in fiscal year 13, which is October 1st, of course, that fund will also pay for the operations of the Taxicab Commission. Their budget is about, I think, 1.1 million. 1.4? 2.4 a year? Okay, so $2.4 million a year. This means that the taxicab industry in the district is moving to a user fee supported budget, and no general tax revenues will be used in the future to fund the operation of the Taxicab Commission. It will result in several million dollars of savings to the district's general fund. It also means that the 50-cent rider charge will be paid not only by people who live in the District of Columbia, but anybody who uses the taxicabs in the city, which would be people from outside the city as well as those who are visitors to the city. This is the next step in our taxicab improvement program. We also have developed there's a regulation that has been developed that calls for vehicle modernization by 2018 that will phase out all vehicles that are over 7 years of age. We also are now committed to moving towards a single color scheme. That obviously will take time, but ultimately we will have one color scheme that will identify taxicabs here in the District of Columbia, and we're going to increase the number of wheelchair accessible vehicles in the District of Columbia to accommodate people with disabilities. I am absolutely delighted that we have reached this stage. It's something that we promised that we would do, and it's something that we now have delivered on. And we have some folks here from Verifone who will demonstrate how this works. I want to ask them to come up, and then we'll ask Ron and others to come up and ask any questions that may be associated with this. So, can we see how this works?
You see the screens and the lights in it.
Don't believe it, love it. That's just a message that we.
Introduce yourselves.
When you're talking about we just have a technical issue for the cameras. The overhead lights are shining into the screens. We can't see it. Is it
tilt the machine, the actual machine. There you go.
Oh, yeah,
there you go. That's right.
That's That's right. That's fine.
Tom,
We want everyone to look their best.
Including the
Tom, we
machine.
can do this after again. Bring you guys up.
Okay.
Got everything you need now, Tom?
Would you like a cup of coffee?
We still do okay. Donuts.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll try to do my best I'll start with, my name is Amos Tamam. I'm a Senior Vice President with Verifone. With me is Nestor Guzman and Jason Gross, and we'll try to do our best here to demonstrate the components of the system first, and just take you through a quick run on the entire loop of how does it look from the time the passenger entered the vehicle to the time he's exiting the cab. So, sorry? Can you put it in vacant? The system comprises of few components. It's 5 components. Taximeter, which most of you probably are familiar with, the existing taximeters installed in the existing cabs in the district. We have the DIM, which stands for Driver Information Monitor. These little units here, installed in the front of the vehicle, facing the driver. We have the Verifone VX unit that allows the passenger to pay with a credit card. It's also fully compatible with EMV and NFC cards and systems. And if you guys are not familiar with the terms, feel free to ask questions. And in the back, we also have the PIM, which stands for the Passenger Information Monitor. I'll take you through the loop of how does it look from the time the passenger entered the cab. So from the time the driver hired the meter, we introduce PSA, passenger announcement, that will provide to us by the district and can contain any information that the district may want to deliver to the passenger. This is variant from 15 to 20 seconds, depending on the length, of course, of the PSA. Right after the PSA, we're going to play content provided by NBC with a mix on some commercials. The PSA was the beginning, and this is already the content that will deliver anywhere from news, weather, sports, and some evergreen programs as well. In between the commercials, we may play some, between the content segments, we may play some commercials, advertising from national or some local companies as well. The driver during the ride can benefit from a voice-guided navigation systems on the DIM that can voice guide them basically to any location in the north and northeast. At the end of the ride, when the driver stops the meter, a payment screen will appear in the back, providing the passenger with the option to pay by cash, credit card, or what's soon to come also mobile payments as well. Do you have a test card? Okay. We can demonstrate a quick card acceptance here.
Select credit.
Selecting credit. The screen prompt for the tip options. We have quick selections, or the passenger can actually enter the specific amount. Okay, upon selecting, we display the full amount, and the passenger swipe the card. I want to emphasize that the average time to check out of a cab today with cash is 45 seconds, and we're gonna bring it down to about 5 seconds. So paying by credit card is much faster than any other payment method known today. The passenger will be provided with a receipt, and the driver is gonna get his payments directly to his bank account in the next following business day. I would let Jason maybe cover a little bit more about the content itself. Maybe you can say a few words.
Sure.
So at the end of, my name is Jason Gross. I'm the Director of Marketing for Verifone Media. And at the end of 2011, we signed a nationwide partnership with NBC-owned television stations, which thankfully includes Channel 4 here in New York. And we provide a mix. I'm sorry. It's been a long morning. Channel 4 here in DC. And So what we're generally working with is news updated throughout the day along with weather, local interest stories, and then a variety of primetime content from NBC Universal stations, so Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Fallon, Jay Leno, etc. And again, within the passenger information monitor, there's also a bunch of touchscreen options. So along the top are tabs, we call them, from certain partners. So you'll get, if you press the weather, for example, you'll get a real-time updated weather forecast. You'll get the latest news stories, latest sports, other information currently from people for entertainment. And then along the bottom is a crawler that you would see on the TV, except in this case, it's clickable. So if there's a headline that someone sees they want to read more about, they can simply press the screen and it'll expand, as we'll demonstrate momentarily.
News content. Sports. At the bottom, you have the detail.
Sure, and of course this is completely controlled by the passenger. They can turn it off if they like, they can adjust the volume, they can mute it altogether. And if the monitor is turned off at the end of the ride, it will obviously turn right back on to complete the payments.
So let me just highlight the three functions which are new and I think extremely important and were part of the RFP requirements. So with this equipment, we're going to provide the driver and the passenger an emergency button where upon certain situation, either the driver or the passenger can send a signal to the monitoring agency and to seek some help. The system also ensures that only valid driver can drive the vehicle. The entire system is fully integrated with the taxi meter. And in order for the driver to start the work and be able to hire the meter, he must log in with his user ID password, and it's authenticated. So basically, we're going to ensure that only valid drivers can drive the vehicle. The other very important element that this system brings in is the ability to track lost and found. We all probably had our days, this way or the other, in the cab where we forgot something in the back of the cab or the trunk or the seat, and we had no way to track back the vehicle and get our belonging back. This system provides electronic logs that contain the information of the pickup and drop destination of each trip, including the fare amount, etc. And the passenger, upon providing one of these elements, say where was he picked up and where it was dropped, the system will be able to locate the specific vehicle. It will allow the district to contact the cab driver and hopefully get the belonging back to the passenger. That's a few of the points. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Let me ask, before we open it for questions, let me ask Ron Linton, who's the chairman of our Taxicab Commission, to come up. Again, this is something that we decided to do very early in this administration. We've been working on this, and Ron, of course, is the person who's been spearheading the day-to-day development and implementation. Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very major portion of the mayor's program for modernizing our taxi fleet here in the District of Columbia. As he pointed out, we also adopted a regulation 2 months ago that begins the modernization process over a 5-year period. This plan has been in the works for almost since the mayor appointed me to this position, and with the help of OCTO and our special technical consultants, particularly Mr. Stefan Papadopoulos, that we developed the details of this program that we think will serve both the drivers and the passengers of vehicles extremely well, particularly the 50% of ridership that comes from our conferences that come in as tourists, that come in from out of this area and use these taxi cabs on that. We we'll hope that all the approvals go in time, and we have as targeted as early before the end of the year, Mr. Mayor. We're going to try even faster than the end of the year period, but we're going to move on it very quickly to get these all installed, and we think this is going to make a real major difference for the city.
One of the things that I should mention that I don't think was mentioned, and that is there is a screen that allows the passengers to be able to indicate if they would like to tip the driver. The one I've seen, it's pretty easy. It's a matter of seconds to be able to execute. It says 10%, 15%, 20%. I think there's an other up there also. So it could certainly have the impact of increasing the revenue of the drivers just from tips alone. So this is a major step forward. The driver orientation will be unfolding now as we move forward with installation of this, but all of these will be installed in a matter of months. They'll be maintained by Verifone, and as technology increases or improves, there will be technological improvements introduced at the same time. Yes.
How many other companies?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
How many other companies bid on the contract?
I don't know how many
There
bid.
were 8 altogether.
8. 8.
8, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Why go ahead and solidify this contract now before the council has had a chance to vote on the taxi legislation?
This is something that we promised to do ages ago, and I can't imagine anybody that would be opposed to this. We've announced it. We had an 8-point plan that we talked about, that Ron talked about in his confirmation hearing. So this is a continuing effort to effectuate the kind of improvements in the taxi cab system that we promised.
Mr. Mayor, comment. This is transmittal of the contract to the council. This is not putting it into effect. Yeah, but he asked that question.
Yeah, we know that. No, we can't preempt the approval process of the council. Mark and then Peter.
Well, I got a few questions, but I guess my first question will be about the choice of NBC. As somebody who doesn't work for NBC, I'm just wondering, Mr. Mayor, it seems like this is something that could have been competitively bid. This component of it gives a huge competitive advantage to one news outlet over others who are equally capable of providing this content locally and already do. And I'm just wondering if that factored into your decision and if you think that that's something...
I don't think we had anything to do with the selection of NBC. You all can speak to that, but that was not something that we had Let me finish, Mark, okay? And we'll let the guys come up and talk about it, but that is not something that was involved in the competition. I don't even know whether other companies included that kind of component in it at all. You all want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. We have a business arrangement with NBC, and it's a national agreement. So is some of the bidders that compete with against us on the RFP had some exclusive arrangement with ABC. Unfortunately, they lost.
So you using local NBC talent?
Yes.
Don't you see how that is something that every other network in town would have an issue with?
Well, our competitor has exclusive with ABC, and we have exclusive with NBC. That's a business arrangement.
Why would that component,
Yeah.
why can't that component of it be taken out and something that could be bid locally and competitively? I just...
Okay, I'm going to give you the answer. You may not like it, but I think you can default back to the ABC national team and local team in New York that made the decision to go with our competitor. So.
Because you work for ABC 7, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
CBS Radio. I think both of them would like an opportunity to bid on that.
Well, again, there's no revenue associated with that for us. That was not a relationship that we had anything to do with, and this gentleman has explained that. And frankly, from the customer perspective, Mark, let's focus on what this does for the customer in the back of the cab. Those are the features that really are important to us, not whether NBC gives the news or ABC 7 gives the news or CBS gives the news. That seems like an ancillary, incidental part of this whole effort to me. Tom?
I'd like to ask a question the drivers might ask. There's a small fee attached to this. I don't know what a small fee means to the folks who run Verifone, but I know what it means to a cab driver. What is the cost to the independent cab drivers who still fear the city is moving towards medallions and running them all out of business? So what's the cost to the independent cab driver, not the cab companies?
Yeah, let me ask Ron to address that, but I think you know, I've stated my position on medallions before. I've never said I was in favor of medallions, and I'm not today. I've indicated that I was opposed to medallions.
Tom, it's less than $500. We can't be exact the amount yet, but it's not going over that. Probably more likely in the neighborhood of 300.
Would this be an upfront cost that he or she will have to pay, or is this something?
Yes,
that
at time of installation. Yeah, that's it. And there are no other costs to the driver.
The meters they have now will be taken out and the new meter will be put in?
Only if they're non-compatible.
An additional cost? If it's
No.
So
There are no other costs to the drivers. Yeah.
What if they can't afford that? What if they just said that, is that something they could pay over time, or is there some accommodation if a driver says, look, $500 is a lot of money up front for me, I just don't have that?
We'll work that out with them.
And Mr. Lim, while you're there, the surcharge, the 50 cents, has that gone into effect already?
No, we have to wait for the council action.
When would that 50 cents, so you don't know when that
Not, the process is that the council has to act. After the council acts, the commission will have to adopt regulations in accordance to the rulemaking process. So the earliest that it can be approved is the 28th of August, and would go into effect after we install the systems.
I know it's your press conference, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much for that. It makes me feel so much better to feel like I'm actually running my own press conference. And you work for NBC, right? I was certainly going to call on Councilmember Che because she's played such an active role in the reforms and advancements that we're trying to make in the taxicab industry. So I want to call on Councilmember Che now to be able to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Well, thank you very much, Tom, for inviting me to speak. As you know, or you may have followed, the legislative process with respect to this legislation is that we are on second reading for next Tuesday. I anticipate that the council will adopt the legislation. There may be some amendments, but they're not fundamental. And so I would expect that we would finish up with this from our end of it on Tuesday. I'm grateful to the mayor and Mr. Linton and to all the others who have worked together with us on reforming the taxi industry. I think that at the end of the day, what we're going to have is a taxi industry that works for the District of Columbia and is fair to the drivers and will be a modern, wonderful taxi experience for people who come and visit and people who travel around in the District of Columbia. We needed to have a lot of pieces. There were a lot of pieces that had to be put in place in terms of securing financing, in terms of arranging how this would be worked out. I have met myself many times with the taxi drivers and with others who are interested in this, and I think at the end of the day we will have something, we'll be able to steer a course that allows us to modernize this industry, be fair to the drivers, and have something that we can be proud of.
You support independent drivers and you're not interested in having medallions come along?
Of course, I've said that right from the very beginning. Now, there has been... No, I know, and I thought I settled that down with them because I've explained to them that I'm not in favor of it, the mayor is not in favor of it. There may have been some members of the council who were in favor of it, but I think, you know, the last vote demonstrated that we are not going in that direction. We have no intention of going in that direction.
Yes, sir.
About credit cards, is there a fee for accepting credit cards to either the passenger or the driver?
A fee to whom?
To either the passenger or the driver.
No, the only thing to the passenger is the 50-cent surcharge when the meter's activated. There's no fee to the driver.
Equipment when it's in a taxi cab. Who owns the equipment when it's been installed in the taxi cab?
Verifone.
And who will repair it?
Verifone. We are in fact leasing the system for 5 years.
To be accepted?
All of them. All of them.
And I have a question. There was the GPS system. Said somebody's going. Who is going to? When we say we're going to monitor the GPS system, who's going to monitor it?
911, 311. When the meter's activated, they're monitored. When the meter's not activated, they're not monitored.
So anytime the meter is on, the GPS is on.
That's correct.
Peter and then
Tom. The Washington Post in February wrote, if drivers must install new equipment, why not give them the specifications and let them shop around, rather than have the Taxicab Commission choose a single vendor. And it goes on to say the study should be conducted because there's too much argument by anecdote on all sides of the debate. How comfortable are you, Mayor Gray, with the Taxicab Commission, which is itself a troubled agency, selecting this vendor sole source?
Well, it's not sole source.
It's one company.
Well, 8 bidders. Yeah. There were 8. So it's not sole source. Let me make that absolutely clear. But I think to have people shopping around and they do it on their timetable and maybe this month, next month, maybe never, be myriad systems, you would just have a mess at the end of the day. I think this is an instance where we needed to step in. We needed to say, here is a system that we've adopted. There's a competitive bid process. Anybody that wanted to be in the game had an opportunity to be in it. But at the end of the day, we needed something that was uniform that we could work with. So I'm absolutely supportive of having selected one company to do that, and that was a bid process. I didn't even know who the 8 companies were, to be honest with you. And I don't know who the other 7 are now, but no way would I support having somebody having, a variety of different approaches to this, let alone the issues that would have been associated with the software and the technology. Let me get Tom, and then we'll come back to you, okay?
The purpose of the GPS tracking, as you may know, there were some protesters, cab drivers outside a couple days ago. They kind of saw a Big Brother theme in this. Why are you spying on us? That kind of thing. Can you talk about just the purpose of that facet?
Well, I think it'll give us a lot of data. There are people who complain frequently that cabs don't go into certain areas of the city. It'll give us better information upon which to base any conclusions that may be reached. It will give us data on knowing, what are the most frequently traveled routes in the District of Columbia. I think it will provide a lot of information to us that we just don't have now as we evaluate the effectiveness of the taxicab industry.
Mr. Mayor, let me add one point on that. The only surveillance of the vehicle is when a passenger's in the vehicle, and that's essentially safety purpose. When the meter is activated, the GPS will be reporting where they are in live time. When the meter is not activated, when they're off duty, when they're on a call to go pick up somebody, or when they're cruising, they're not on the system.
Can a cab driver go back to the cash system that they loved before?
No, they're got to go get that meter fixed.
While the meter's broken?
That's right. They are just as they are now.
Who pays if it breaks? If the Verifone meter breaks, who pays?
If it's a warranty issue, it's Verifone's.
Let's be absolutely clear. It isn't as if we don't have meters now. We have meters at this point. So that's a question that could have been asked whether we had this system or not.
If I were a driver, if my meter broke. That's what
I think you can still use cash anyway, right?
Well, you use cash with meters. You can't operate the meter.
Go back to your question now.
Mayor Gray, earlier you mentioned the focus on passengers, and this system, the Verifone spokesman misspoke and said this is New York. It's not, but I think some of the things like this happen in New York. The advertising is wildly unpopular. In fact, the New York Times wrote of this, those bleeding miniature television screens are a standard annoyance. And now New York's moving away from this at the very time that we're moving towards it. Do you have any concerns this hasn't worked out well in New York and now we're bringing it here?
I think if it doesn't work out well, we're going to continue to use it. Anything that doesn't work, we recognize that this is a major step forward. Some of this will be a initial cruise, so to speak, to work out any issues that are associated with it. If there are things that don't work out, we'll discontinue those.
And the passenger, Mr. Mayor, can just turn it off.
Yeah. Did you hear what he said? He said the passenger can turn it off.
If I could answer for a moment, the Times article is a bit misleading.
What? The media is misleading?
not to defend the entire advertising industry, but it's a lovable punching bag. And because we have the data on the systems, they're turned off well less than 20% of the time. And our own surveys of riders, again, if the survey that the Times are referring to, I would say asked inappropriate questions. So it was the third least disliked thing out of 4 choices. But the spin from the press was obviously, well, people hate this, they're an annoyance. The truth of the matter is actually all of our survey data of passengers, they actually like it quite a bit. They have the opportunity to turn it off, and they don't.
So we should trust Veriphone data over the New York Times?
Yes, actually you should, because it's actually recorded from a secure device.
I've actually ridden in the New York cabs, and to be honest with you, with all due respect to Verifone and the New York Times, I didn't pay any attention to it.
Alan, then Martin is the last question.
No, why are we having last questions? Why do we do that? What the hell? You have a press conference. We have questions to ask about the system.
Ask him afterwards, Alan.
No, Mr. Mayor, why don't we just stop now and not cover the story?
Would you like to ask your question now?
Sure.
Jesus Christ.
Where are they going to be installed in the cab for passengers, and will be a silent alarm?
We don't have any panic buttons. They're safety devices. One will be installed where the driver can easily access it without being seen accessing, and the other will be in the passenger module.
What happens when someone pushes that button?
What happens if the driver pushes a button? A Metropolitan Police Department will arrive where he is. If the passenger pushes a button, the hack inspector will arrive.
How long is the 50-cent surcharge going to be imposed? And I'll yield the rest of my time to Tom Schroeder.
It's endless. I have another guest speaker.
We'll be under the draft of the legislation that I expect will pass. We will have to have a mandatory review of the surcharge each year. We'll have to evaluate the cost and the budget of the commission, which will still have to go to the council for approval. So it'll be a yearly process.
Quick question.
I hope it, again, I don't want to be redundant, but I guess I will be, that it isn't lost on folks that what now is paid for out of the district's general fund, out of our operating budget, will now move to being paid for from the 50-cent surcharge, which actually will relieve the taxpayers completely of paying for the operation of the Taxicab Commission.
Mr. Lindman, what is the policy now about air conditioning in the cabs? Is it required that the operating cabs have air conditioning? We've got this next 4 or 5 days of tremendous heat. What is the...
Yes, Tom, and the regulations require that the passenger may request that air conditioning be put on if it's not on when they get into the cab.
How comfortable you are at expanding the scope and scale of the power of the Taxicab Commission, which is a troubled agency. Mary Cheh herself called for it to be eliminated, and now it's going to be much more powerful. Are you comfortable with this?
Well, obviously I am. We indicated that we were going to work to reform the Taxicab Commission. You know, if there are continuing discussions, which there probably will be, about the best administrative approach to this, we will continue those discussions, but I don't think that obviates the introduction of 21st century technology to make this more convenient for the customers in a cab and more convenient for the drivers. Whether DDOT, DPW, DC Water, or anybody else runs the taxicab industry, it doesn't have any impact on being able to move to this technology. Thank you all very much. Well, we could probably do that. I was thinking about riding in many of the cabs myself, and then I could do it personally.